like to call the regular meeting of the Oxford City Council to order and ask Heather once again to call the roll.
Mr. Ellerby?
Here.
Ms. Franklin?
Here.
Ms. French?
Here.
Mr. Prethridge?
Here.
Ms. Ragu?
Here.
Mr. Bracken?
Here.
Mayor Snavely?
Here. Since we are all here, we will move to our regular meeting agenda with the Pledge of Allegiance, and all those who wish to join us, will do so. Thank you, and I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any additions or changes? All those in favor of approving the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda's approved. We'll move to public participation. And we get to start with our friend Larry Nadler, who will talk to us about the Police Community Relations and Review Commission. Welcome, Larry.
Hi, thank you. I will try to be short. Actually, I've already accomplished that in some ways, but I will try to limit my observations. I would like to start by thanking our outgoing members, a lot of turnover on the commission, including Pat Mead, who served admirably as chair for several years, and Deirdre DeLong, and also Hannah Story have left, and we have 3 new members who have joined us. Latricia Hillman, by the way, is the new vice chair of our committee. I thought it might be useful, since it shouldn't even take a minute, to review the purposes and objectives of the PCRRC. Since its inception, a lot has occurred, and I think it's always good to be reminded of that. And I think it does 2 things. It provides a context for what we've worked on during the year, and I think if anyone is watching this meeting, it gives them that information they might not otherwise have. So as stated in essentially the charter, the purposes and objectives are to improve communication between the community and Oxford Police Division, to increase police accountability and credibility with the public, to create a fair and impartial complaint process, and finally to advise the chief, the city manager, and city council on division policies and procedures. So those are the things that we concern ourselves with. Probably the biggest accomplishment in the last year, and frankly it's a shared accomplishment, including city council, including city manager, the Oxford Police Department, and our commission played some role in, is that we have hired a new person who is serving as a social service liaison, or essentially a police social worker. Her name is Ashley Weddle. I met her during the interview, and I believe she'll be coming to our November meeting, and we'll have a chance to explore some things with her. She started on August 15th, and I would trust things are going well. But that was a significant accomplishment, and coming, on the heels of the George Floyd incident and other things going around the country, I think there was a desire to be proactive rather than reactive in regard to such matters. Having said that, I think it's fair to point out that, and it has been pointed out, that we don't want to localize national issues. In other words, it doesn't mean Oxford has those problems or the police have those problems, but it is, I think, helpful. One of the things as a commission member that I see is a weekly police report, and several of the incidents that are reported on a weekly basis are really well suited to having somebody who works in conjunction with the police, who isn't a police officer, isn't carrying a gun, and we're very optimistic and hopeful that this will be a really good addition to our community, and I want to thank City Council for their part in that process as well. All right, we do meet 4 times a year at minimum. Usually those are quarterly. The August meeting is typically an introductory meeting, and actually within the context of a lot of discussion, there had been a lot of community involvement prior to that. The police, I think, are also concerned, and this is a 2-way relationship. We want everything to work well for our police department and for the community. But some concerns expressed that, we don't want to be too negative, and we don't want to just focus on things, especially that may have happened elsewhere. And so hearing police concerns, some of them are things like having more police officers on duty during any given shift, and that's probably more a financial issue and outside of our bailiwick, but those concerns were expressed and heard. There was some desire to maybe tighten the relationship between the PCRRC and police department, police officers, and toward that end, although it's still in process, Latricia Hillman has been working on putting together essentially a list of officers that might go along, to the extent this is desirable, with one member of the commission, and whether it's in the form of ride-alongs or other things, to try to have good lines of communication. So that is something that we're currently working on. That extended into the November meeting. And at that time, I mentioned that complaints are part of the process. The chief reported on 2 complaints at that time, the only 2 for the year, one of which was resolved and involved being unfounded. The other was in process at that time, but since has involved exoneration. So we don't get a lot of such complaints, and wanted to give you some information. So that was one of the purposes that we have. Our March meeting, which is typically our public participation meeting, and in the year or 2 prior, we really did have a lot of citizens speaking up. They were Zoom meetings during the middle of the pandemic, but people were very concerned. I noticed in our meeting this year that the public really didn't attend or speak. The SROs, school resource officers, all 3, came and I think did a great presentation, gave us information about what they're about, some of the programs and initiatives that they're involved in, and I think it was very helpful for us to get that insight. I'm happy, by the way, after this to answer any questions about particulars, but I know you have the report and don't really feel the need to go into more detail. Finally, our May meeting, as has been the case the whole time I've been on the commission, is our data meeting, where we get information pertains to arrests, to traffic stops, historical data, so we can look over time. Some of it's broken out by race, by age. No surprise, 64% of all crime in Oxford was committed by people between the age of 16 and 25, for example. We do try to be mindful of some of the variation that might be there, so it's useful to look at that, and a summary was provided to you in that regard. One thing that was added this year for the first time that had been discussed by commission members and initiated for the first time this year involved pedestrian stop data. So you have information about that in addition to traffic stops. I will tell you that we are fortunate to live in a relatively safe and quiet town. I think there were total combined of use of force incidents, as well as incidents that involved or required drawing of a firearm. I think combined there were 17 for the year, which is really, less than 1.5 per month. So that's not a common occurrence in Oxford. Happy to answer any questions you have, but I just wanted to take you quickly and briefly through what we've been up to this year.
Thanks, Larry. Questions for Larry? I know all of council thanks you, Larry, and the other members of the commission. I think you serve a valuable purpose in our community, and we support our police department, and we support our community, and that you are the nexus of that relationship, and we thank you for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, at this time we'll move to other public comments, and anyone wishing to address council about items that are not on the agenda or if they are on the consent agenda, now would be a great time for you to come forward, state your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 5 minutes. Seeing no one jump up, I will assume there are no public comments tonight. And we will move to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve it?
So moved.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Thank you very much. Are there any items to be removed? Okay, all in favor of approving the consent agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We'll move to resolutions. And Heather, you can read the first one.
A resolution repealing Resolution Number 6051, adopted February 6, 2018, and adopting new rules of order for the Oxford Recreation Board.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Thank you, Alex. Hi, Casey.
Good evening. How are you guys?
We're good. Fill us in.
So this is a pretty simple language update to the rules of order for the Recreation Board. It currently states the day of the month and the week of the month that we'll meet, but in order to allow whatever current board members are on that board to make that decision, we're updating the language to generalize it a little bit more so that the current board can decide that rather than coming back to council every time that a new member comes on that can't meet at that certain day. This allows the board members to just make that decision.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution? Seeing none, any questions or comments?
This might
from
be the
council?
least controversial thing we
It
deal
could
with
be.
all year. It's
I think you're good here. All right, all those in favor of approving the resolution indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
Resolution is adopted, and we'll move to the next one, and you may read it.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into the Butler County Mutual Police Aid Agreement.
Okay, and is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Thank you very much. Chief, welcome.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is a Butler County Mutual Police Aid Agreement. This would replace our old agreement, which was signed last in 2002, I believe. This came up for a topic of discussion at our Butler County Chiefs meetings. There were some antiquated language and some things that they wanted to see improved. Most notably, that in our old language, you often had to be requested to provide assistance. And, you know, as you know, we drive through many jurisdictions, you know, going to court in Hamilton, and there was really no legal backing for if an incident happened in front of us, for us to immediately intercede. So all the jurisdictions in Butler County have looked at this. Their law directors have weighed in and made suggestions, and our law director reviewed this, and this is kind of the final product before you. This would allow the city manager to enter into the agreement, and we see it as a positive thing and a needed thing if we need assistance.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution? Okay, counselors? I know we've had mutual aid agreements for quite many years.
Sure.
And we also have a mutual aid agreement with Miami.
That's correct, yeah. We have specific mutual aid agreements, like with Miami University, which goes into more detail and expands on it. This would just enter with other county agencies who often will come to help us, and of course, if we're requesting them come help us under the old agreement, it works. But this will just streamline some of that mutual aid assistance.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead.
How would the PCRC play a role in this, or would they?
I don't think they would. This is just coming directly to council for the city manager to sign with them. So it hasn't been presented to them.
I mean, this just has to deal with like the example that Chief Jones gave, you know, that he's in another city and sees a crime, he can intervene, gives him the authority to do it, so it's not a
Significant.
huge issue for us or whatever.
Yeah.
But it works the other way around too.
Right.
Yeah.
Just going forward, like, what if there was some problem that seemed to be a trend? Where would that fall into play?
I mean, certainly we can discuss it at the PCR.
Sure.
We just didn't feel that this was at that level.
Yeah, it doesn't really address the goals of the commission, I don't think, when you really outline the goals. It talks about improving communication between the community and the police division, police accountability, credibility of the public. So they certainly, you know, when the chairman asks to put things on the agenda, topics that we bring, if he wants to put the mutual aid agreement on the agenda, we could certainly talk about that. We've had in the past the township police chief and the Miami police chief come to that meeting and talk. But I mean, this is something we've done for many years, well before the PCRC was here. Deals more with intergovernmental agreements rather than, you know, communication with our public. So,
And realistically, given our location as part of the county, it's probably a greater benefit to the other communities because we go to a lot of meetings, for example, in Hamilton. And those also in Westchester. Rarely do other officers come to Oxford.
yeah, and like occasionally officers from other jurisdictions will come through town to come to court. You know, here at Area 1 on Thursdays, you might see different jurisdictions in town, but generally it's us going outside of town.
Yep.
Yeah.
And all parties can withdraw at will, right, per the agreement, so should there be
Yeah.
an incident,
Right.
we could withdraw.
Yeah, and each party, I mean, I guess I should add that, you know, you sign this agreement, but you still have your own department policies and procedures that you may, you know, limit folks in. Just as we talked at the chiefs meeting, you know, this isn't designed to allow other agencies to come into another jurisdiction and run traffic, you know, stuff like that. It's more for a crime, you know, a violent crime in progress for us to take action on and stop it, and then wait on the other agency to come and handle the reports. And we just think that gives us more legal backing than the old agreement did, that said, well, you had to, you know, wait for that call for assistance. And it puts officers in a really bad spot. You know, if you don't feel like you're allowed to stop and help and you're in a marked police car, you know, we get complaints, you know, if we drive past something,
Yeah.
even though we're well outside our jurisdiction, if that makes, I've been in those situations before.
And the old agreement was very dated.
2002, I think. Yeah.
Is there any further questions? Discussion?
Well,
Yeah.
questions or
Mhm.
are we discussing?
Or discussion, yeah.
I was just gonna say that, I don't find this problematic at all, but I do like the idea of this going to the PC, review commission first, just so we have a heads up.
Yeah.
I think it could be a good topic of conversation at PCRC. One thing that I've heard from people in the community is sometimes they're confused at the different the different police departments that they might encounter here, but it seems like it's more likely you all being in other places than other departments being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I do think that I think that, as we know, we have different jurisdictions. So the Butler County Sheriff's Office sometimes has different priorities than the city of Oxford does. And I think that's where, if there's any hesitation, it's the idea that they could exert their priorities in a domain that we consider kind of ours. And so I think, but that would be a manager, that's chief to sheriff conversation that's handled. This just kind of
They're not
indemnifies
patrolling
them
here.
against it. It provides some flexibility, but it doesn't really cover like the what and the when, and then that would be more administrative conversations.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think if unexpected issues come up, then they can be taken to PCRC because that would be appropriate at that time. But it doesn't suggest that other departments are going to be patrolling the streets of Oxford. So, okay, are we ready to vote? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the resolution is adopted. Thank you, Chief. And if you'll read the third one.
A resolution authorizing the release of American Rescue Plan Act funding up to the maximum of $132,000 for payment of the College at Elm project.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Okay, how are you?
Your Honor, good evening, members of
Welcome.
council. Back in November of 2021, the city council approved designating $132,000 in ARPA funds for the project known as College at Elm. You can see on the drawing, there's a reconstruction of Walnut Street at the bottom of the drawing, which is long overdue. We've been looking to do that for a long time, as well as the construction of about 40 parking spaces for employees and visitors to the facility. This money will also pay for sidewalk upgrades and handicap parking and 7 other staff member parking spots as well. So this is a significant investment from the city to partner with Miami for this economic development project. We're working to partner these funds with our CDBG funds to do the city's portion of the project. We have the CDB portion out to bid currently, and as soon as HUD releases the funds for that part of the project, we'll come back to you again with a construction contract for that portion of the project. So tonight, we're asking your permission to authorize up to $132,000 of ARPA funds to be released to go to Miami University as one funding source for this entire project. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this resolution? Okay. Council? Questions? Discussion? I do know that we're very much have been in favor of the College at Elm project, and I don't think this is a surprise to anybody that we're doing this, and we've talked about it. Okay. Ready to vote? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution is adopted. We'll move to ordinances. First reading. It's all yours, Heather.
An ordinance granting the request of Gerald and Linda Dinkeldine to connect to an existing city water main for a single-family residence located on a 1.5-acre parcel on Trenton Oxford Road outside Oxford corporate limits.
Okay. Welcome, Mike.
Well, thank you. Great to be here.
Seems like we just saw you.
This is a very simple request in my mind for a single-family house that's existing on State Route 73, just east of the city's water plant. And they're currently on a well which is having some difficulties with water quality, and they would like to tap into the city's infrastructure. They are willing to annex into the city. You can see at the top of this aerial, there are little postage stamps surrounded by Miami's property, again, just east of 4 Mile Creek. So that'll be good to get that island removed and annex them into the city. And their water use will have no detrimental effect on the city's water supply.
Okay.
So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance? Okay, Councilor, discussion or questions? Well, for those in the public who are wondering, a first reading means we're going to listen. People can make their comments, and we can have a little debate about it, but we're not going to vote on it until our next meeting. So there won't be a vote on this tonight because it's a first reading. Okay. Okay, seems pretty simple. All right. Would you like to read the second one, please?
An ordinance amending ordinance number 3654, supplemental budget ordinance number 7, to make supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2022.
Thank you very much. Joe, welcome back.
Yes, thank you. First item is to make an adjustment to budget expenditures excuse me, for the civic clerk agenda and minute tool for $18,175. We currently we already had paid for Granicus for a year, but we're using this as an upgrade, and it should work much more efficiently and be much more user friendly. Plus, the annual cost will be less going forward. I think there's like a $6,000 one-time cost associated with this also. So going forward, it makes sense. And the second item there is, usually in the past we've got these Meraki licenses for 1 year, and we budgeted I believe it was $14,000 in this year's budget, but for an additional $3,579 or $74, we'll get a 3-year license renewal, and that saves us over $18,000. So it's sort of a no-brainer. It's like, you know, we had an employee who went the extra yard and looked for a cost savings, and it came through, and I'd rather spend the money this year and save it going forward. So kudos to our new IT guy for thinking about that. The next issue has to do with, and this one was actually on before, it was for the This is an advance we had to make to the High Street Pedestrian Safety Capital Improvement Fund of $400,000 that we did earlier this year. And actually in the staff report I had, and this is actually repaying the advance back to the general fund. I had it in the staff report. I neglected to put it in the ordinance, so this is just the money going back. There's $400,000 sitting there just waiting to get back to the general fund. So this will make that happen. And then the third item has to do with increasing the budget for overtime for the EMS, fire EMS fund. $110,000 in overtime and $51,670 in fringes. And this is due to, we've had some injured employees, and we've also had some problems filling shifts due to hard time getting part-time people in there. So this is a budget adjustment that's needed to, we're projected to have $200,000 worth of overtime at the end of the year, so this should true that up for the end of the year. So I thought I'd just get it done at this point. Be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joe. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance? Seeing none, any questions from council? Discussion. Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
And we will move to second readings. You can read the first one.
An ordinance to regulate the rates and charges to be charged and collected and the services to be rendered by Glenwood Energy of Oxford Incorporated, its successors and assigns for gas and gas service furnished to all of its customers within the corporate limits of the city of Oxford during the period ending October 31st, 2025, and repealing and superseding ordinance number 3483, which together previously regulated such rates, charges, and services.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. And staff report, is that going to be you, Doug?
Yes, thank you. I gave a rather lengthy report at the last council meeting.
You
I
did.
promised you I would give that same report.
Thank you.
But I'll just briefly say that this only affects the fixed meter charge. So for residential customers, the fixed meter charge in the first year would go from $10 to $12, and then in years 2 and 3, it would go to from 12 to 14. And the rates, if adopted by council tonight, would then be effective November 1st, 2022, this year. And unless you have some questions, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this ordinance? Seeing none, council? There's nothing different from last time? I'm not. Yeah, you have.
I was just gonna say for public knowledge, do we want to explain what would happen should we not approve this?
Well, yeah, if we don't approve it, they have the ability to go to the PUCO to set the rates. We've never done that since I've been here, and that, I don't think we've ever done that because it was change in ownership just before I arrived here. So we've always been able to come to an agreement on the rates, and we're recommending, staff and I are recommending that you adopt this ordinance this evening.
So essentially, we've negotiated, and if we weren't to agree to this, then we could end up in a worse standing potentially.
We would have less control, I mean, going to PUCO. And I would emphasize, excuse me, I would emphasize that we basically have used the same rate-making policies that PUCO did in reviewing their recommendations. And we did hire an attorney, with Ricker and Eckler, and also an accountant to help us with this.
I'm just explaining to the public so they don't think we're wantonly just agreeing to raise prices for no reason.
Yeah.
Right, right. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion, questions? Would you like to call the roll, please?
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. Pethridge?
Yes.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Mayor Snavely?
Yes. Ordinance is adopted. And we will move now to announcements and communications, and I will begin with City Manager Elliott.
I'm once again going to be real brief. I just want to remind council that next Monday we're going to go over that one layer of the salad Joe was talking about, our capital improvements, the CIP program. We'll do that in a work session Monday, September 12th at 6:30 p.m. here in the courthouse. And that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Nothing tonight, thank you. Chief?
As Mr. Nadler already mentioned, since our last meeting, our social services liaison, Ashley Weddle, has started. She comes to us from the Chicago area with an extensive background in social services and more specifically child welfare. So she's been busy getting set up, getting settled in, setting up kind of the structure of the position, which will take some time. It's a new position for us, so she's given us feedback as much as, more so than we're giving her any probably. But we've been trying to get out in the community, meeting different organizations and folks to connect her with, and she's been riding with officers and even meeting with some folks in the community who we deal with regularly. So that's been positive, and we're keeping her very busy. And the start of the school year, I'd say, has been good. I mean, we're busier than in the past few years, of course, but I think our numbers are probably not as high, and like our alcohol arrests and stuff are not as high as maybe in like 2018, 2017, those things. So it's an interesting trend we're watching and responding to. On August 25th, we had our division meeting, which is where we all come together and go over important topics. We reaffirm our oath. Judge Lyons comes and we all take the oath again, which I think is important, and it kind of just sets the tone for the new year. So we introduced new employees, including Ashley, at that meeting, and there's 2 young gentlemen who are also in the police academy right now who we'll bring eventually to council to introduce to you, and we'll try to get Ashley here. She wasn't able to be at the last PCRC meeting because she had gotten sick just a few days after coming here. So, but we'll bring her here as well, so you can introduce her, so you can meet her. But it's been a busy year thus far. Red Brick Friday was the next night. That was a big hit, and it went off safely. And officers got to engage in a lot of community outreach. And then just one, obviously folks can follow our social media and see kind of what's happening. We try to put that out there. But one topic of interest is bicycle thefts continue. They're just regularly being stolen. We're working on that. But the best advice we can get is to use a U-lock and not a cable lock. These cable locks are being cut and the bikes are being stolen. So just it's kind of occurring all over the mile square. So just be alert for that. So thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Joe?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. Chief? Thank you, Chief Deathridge. Hi, Casey. I knew you'd take it.
I guess everyone knows I'm going to talk now at this point.
That's good. We like it.
Just 2 updates. One, we have successfully made it through another summer of the Aquatic Center as of yesterday. And we had, I believe, over 60 dogs at dog night last night, which is by far the biggest number. So a little chaotic, but a lot of fun. And I haven't crunched all the season numbers, but all indications are it was very successful. We continue to I think be blessed that we have this facility in our town, not just for the community here, but we have people from all over different communities come to visit Oxford during the summer. And we also employ over 40 primarily high school and college kids during the summer as lifeguards and concession workers, and so a lot of great things come out of having that facility. So, and then on Friday, you should have gotten an email from me with our new activity guide for October through March and everything that's going on during those 6 months. So kind of a preview of what's coming up, and pretty excited about this new Oktoberfest idea, and Parks and Rec will be involved however Jessica and her staff wants us to be involved. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I really know that I speak for all of us to say that you've done a wonderful job with the Aquatic Center. It was a great season.
Thank you.
And I saw a lot of kids, including my own grandkids, have a wonderful time at that.
Yeah.
So good job.
Thank you.
Okay, Sam.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Okay, Jessica.
Good evening. Just wanted to give a few updates. First, This is our first council meeting since the end of the summer and the Red Brick Friday season. So I just want to say thank you, especially to Seth Kroppenbaker, for really taking the leadership and pulling everyone together, including all the partners, for coordinating all the Red Brick Fridays, but especially this last one, which was kind of just a really magical night. But along with that, I want to acknowledge the street department who comes up and closes the road. They do trash sweeps throughout the night. They make sure that everything just looks good in our town. They pick up litter early in the morning before everyone gets there. I mean, I always see them out there, and I just want to know that I appreciate them. To our parking, who make sure that all the parking signs are up, and if they contact cars, like, hey, come get your car. And then police and fire for keeping everyone safe at the events. They block the alleys to keep everyone from being to keep everyone safe. And then finally, Miami University on this last one was a huge partner in funding the band, the music, the zip line, the games. And so just a really wonderful town and gown partnership in that event as well. So there's that. Wanted to let you know that our first ever public art call for art received 125 submissions, and we only have like 6 walls. So we'll figure it out, but it was a really exciting thing, and so we'll be picking those in the next week with our public art commission. The housing RFQ for a nonprofit partner has gone out, and we've been attending county meetings to learn what funding's available and how we can be best aligned to apply for those funding sources. So what are the rules, what are the priorities? We've been working a lot on that. Wanted to let you know for the capital budget meeting that we're going to have, we are leaving the Balancing Act tool open up a few more days. So public, if you're watching, please, you have a few more days to add in your comments of what you'd like us to invest in. And to date, we've had 191 submissions. And so we'll give you a summary on Friday of what those comments are, and so you can see for yourself. And I'll be prepared to present a kind of a presentation at that meeting of what your goals were from March and how we're building them into the budget, so you can kind of see where that intersection is. And then finally, wanted to let you know that staff and I are actively researching federal grants, particularly the Safe Streets for All grant, which is about connectivity and access, and then the rail overpass underpass planning. So we're looking at those. We're going to try really hard to get them in, but that'll be a short timeline here in the fall if we do so. So thanks.
Thank you, Jessica. Heather?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, great. Chris, excuse me, Ben?
Nothing wrong, thank you.
Len?
Nothing, thank you.
Yeah, just a couple things. One, really excited to hear that the social worker has started with the police department. That's super exciting. I can't wait to meet her. 2, Red Brick Fridays, just echoing the congratulations to city staff for accomplishing all summer, just top-notch events. But I will agree, especially this last one, that was one of those nights that you just feel really good about living in Oxford. There were students there, there were families there, there were families with kids there, and it went so well. So if you didn't get a chance to come to a Red Brick Friday over the summer, definitely keep an eye out for kind of upcoming city events. We have Oktoberfest, we have the Chocolate Meltdown. So this was not your only opportunity to come out and engage with the community and the students as well. Speaking of those opportunities, I'm going to take the time to announce that in October we have 3 weekends that we're doing a Spirits of Oxford Cemetery tour. So that will be a lantern-lit evening tour of Oxford Cemetery. And I just want to say a huge thank you, even though we haven't started yet, to the Historic and Architecture Preservation Commission, the Parks and Rec Department, and the Rec Board, the Oxford Cemetery Association, and Enjoy Oxford, and the city for partnering with me on this. The first one will be October 1st, then we have October 8th, and then we have October 29th. And unfortunately, those times will change every week because the sun sets at a different time every week. So keep an eye out. It is made its debut in the program guide for Parks and Recreation, but you should be seeing more promotion around town, and we look forward to seeing you and your flashlight in October. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Ragu.
I wanted to pass on some feedback that from a couple that I met at the last Enjoy Oxford music concert. They had moved here from Ross, and I asked them, I was like, oh, so they're renting an apartment in Miles Square, and they're looking to stay, and they really want to stay in the Miles Square, and I was like, what brought you here? And he just pointed around, he's like, this. He's like, there's things to do, I can walk, I love the bike path, and it was, I think, the highest compliment. And also talking to the school board, even though that isn't in our jurisdiction, they are so full. They are overrun with students because a lot of kids from outlying areas want to come here because we fund our schools and we don't do pay to play. So I think that's what happens when people don't want to invest in their schools or their town. People want to leave. They want to come to places like this who realize the importance of what it means to invest in your people. So I think it's awesome. And even the things like the water, the fact that people want to get the city's water, I think is so cool. So it's just really exciting.
Thank you. Amber?
Yes, I just want to echo what everyone has said so far, and to say again a thank you to Chief Jones and his work with the Police Commission. I got a lovely email over the holiday weekend from a young woman, another speech-language pathologist in Twin Falls, Idaho, who had read something that I had written about police-community relations back in 2020 that was published in one of the speech pathology journals, but she wanted to learn about our police commission, wanted to learn how it worked, and is it particularly interested in working with the refugee population in Twin Falls and improving communication with that population and police through translators and a better understanding of how communication disorders might affect how people are perceived by police. So I'll be communicating with her, but I just think it's really wonderful that what's happening in this town has legs and that people are reaching out. I know, Doug, you've had people reach out to ask about how our police commission is working, and so I just think I'm very proud to be here and for the collaboration that we've had. I do want to say something that was a concern of mine. I have two colleagues, both faculty at Miami who've moved to Oxford, chose to live in Oxford. A lot of faculty don't. They'll move to Northside or somewhere else in Cincinnati, and they were enjoying a lovely day in front of Cafeña on the weekend when a car drove by and yelled anti-Asian slurs at them. They seemed to be students. I called one of them. I heard about this through another friend and called one of them and expressed my regret that happened and asked her if she was okay. And the one thing that she said was that, oh, it happens so often that I don't even talk about it. I mean, my colleague heard about it through the newest member of faculty who had really been living in Oxford for 2 weeks and moved here from California, and that was his experience on week 2. But the woman who'd been living here for 3 years now says that it just happens so often that she doesn't tell us about it. And so there are wonderful things here. There are still things that we need to address. And I know that there was a resolution a couple years ago that we talked about kind of harassment and bias, and maybe I'd like to revisit that again. But let's keep up the good work and let's continue to do better.
Thank you. Jason?
Nothing from me tonight.
Okay. David?
So I'm not a numbers guy, but I have to say I really enjoyed the budget presentation tonight. I'm looking forward to our capital improvements budgeting session on Monday and then working through the operational budgets process, because much as I'm not a numbers person, as a fellow counselor Chantel Ragu has said, that budgets reflect values, right? So the fact that we're able to balance the budget meeting the basic service needs while also stretching in new directions is, we're getting better and better at that. I mean, there was a time in which we were kind of, we're tackling bigger and bigger projects, finding bigger grants because we have local matches, and we're able to deliver more for people in a more ambitious way. And I'm really super excited about the budget, the tool, what's it called? Balancing Act, which you can find on the City of Oxford's homepage, which I hope people use, because I think people like Joe are good at looking at budgets. Doug are good at looking at those. Many of us, it's a lot of numbers and it's hard to perceive. So the degree to which we can kind of, whether it's dumbing it down for counselor privilege or making it available for people so they can see, like, how is the money being spent, how are the priorities being weighed, and increasingly that we're aligning those with, they can see how it aligns with our values. From that last point of view, I know that it's been a little bit quiet, but I understand that the Oxford Tomorrow Plan update is going to be hitting high gear in Q4 so I know people have really enthusiastically participated in that, and I think as we increasingly use the comprehensive plan, not just to guide land use, but to guide things like our budgets I really do say, people, when you get an opportunity to provide your comments and what you want to see happen in your town, what you want to value, do it, because I think we're more serious than ever about aligning our strategic planning with our budgets and making it transparent to people. So it's been a process, but I'm looking forward to this season. So thank you. So when should people expect to see an event coming for the Oxford Tomorrow update?
It's probably going to be in October. We have one more opportunity with our consultant, and then there'll be a planning commission recommendation to city council, and then there'll be a public input meeting, and then the city council adoption. So we will be providing an update to planning commission next week as part of just a regular work session meeting, monthly meeting. But we don't have a date yet in October when a public input meeting would be. So it kind of depends on the venue opportunity and the night of the week with other events and those type of things. But it would be a large venue, like probably at a school type of event.
Okay, so stay tuned and be prepared to come out and have your say, because it will be the document that guides us for the next decade. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to echo one of Jessica's comments about our city staff. I've said this before, but I think one of the reasons it's a good place to live, and in most respects, is the staff who work for our city from top to bottom. They just do a fantastic job, and they deserve to be recognized. If you've read the police blotter, you guys are busy all the time, and there is stuff going on that most of the public doesn't realize how you handle professionally, and some of the things you have to deal with. I just shake my head at some of the things that come across your plate. The service department continues to do a fabulous job, and under Mike's leadership, I think that I see them working on cutting the grass and doing the projects there and cleaning up after these big city events. And I mean, they're everywhere. The streets look so good, and the striping and everything is just done perfectly. The finance department, the staff in the finance department down on the main floor brighten up my day every time I come into that office. And you've got a wonderful staff, and they know how to treat people, and you should be very proud of them. So I just want the citizens of Oxford, be aware, and if you see somebody in the city and they're doing a good job, it's okay to say, hey, good job, I appreciate you. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Oktoberfest.